Welcome to the podcast, Short Talks.
Think about the last time you got dressed up for a formal event. You probably put on a watch or maybe a necklace or just some kind of jewelry, right?
Yeah, like a nice accessory to tie it all together.
Exactly, an accessory. It is a nice addition that makes you look good, but at the end of the day, you can absolutely live without it. I mean, if you forget to put it on, your heart doesn't just stop beating.
Right, your lungs don't start breathing.
Yeah. But imagine for a second if you started treating your lungs or your heart like an accessory. Just this optional add-on that you might utilize if you were feeling particularly ambitious that day.
That would be a terrifying way to live.
It really would. And that strange, impossible disconnect between something we treat as totally optional and something that is entirely essential for survival is the tension we are looking at today. So welcome to the Deep Dive.
It is great to be here.
Today we're taking a look at a text that aims to completely dismantle and, well, rebuild our modern understanding of the word charity.
Yeah, and the shift in perspective here requires us to fundamentally rewire how we think about the act of giving. It moves it from a polite societal suggestion to an absolute existential requirement.
Right, and to get there, we're diving into a translated Greek article. It's titled, Almsgiving is Not a Luxury Kindness, and it explores the historical and theological view on philanthropy within the Orthodox Christian tradition.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core premise we are dealing with here is that philanthropy is not an optional accessory for a generally good person.
Don't know it all.
It is not a strategic tax write-off, and it certainly isn't just giving away your leftovers when it happens to be convenient for you. According to the tradition explored in this text, charity is a fundamental way of being.
Right. It is positioned as a highly practical, unavoidable confession of faith. And the author grounds you immediately by making this really bold claim about religious practice itself.
Oh yeah, this part was striking. Right. The text points out that someone could be incredibly disciplined in all of their religious rituals. Like, a person could be fasting strictly, praying constantly, and attending church every single week without fail.
Which, we tend to view those actions as the hallmarks of a devout life.
Exactly. But the text claims that if that same person ignores those who are suffering, their faith is entirely fruitless.
Wow. Entirely fruitless.
Yeah, the ritual means absolutely nothing. It is practically void if it doesn't manifest as tangible love for another human being.
That just completely reframes the entire concept of what it means to be a religious or even a moral person. We are moving away from the modern definition of charity and going all the way back to the original divine definition of the word.
Right, the root of it.
Because think about what usually pops into our heads today when you or I hear the word philanthropy. I mean, we picture billionaires, right?
Oh, for sure. Giant galas and PR campaigns.
Exactly. We visualize ultra-wealthy individuals writing massive, oversized novelty checks in front of a bank of cameras. We've basically turned it into an industry of the elite.
We really have. But this text points out a radical shift in terminology. The word philanthropy, which literally translates from Greek as the love of humanity, is primarily attributed to God in this tradition, not to humans.
Which is such a flip.
It is. And what's fascinating here is the underlying motivation of that divine philanthropy. The text is very careful to explain the mechanics of why God loves humanity in this framework.
Right, it's not transactional.
Exactly. The love doesn't exist because humans have somehow earned it. It isn't a reward for good behavior or moral perfection. God's love for humanity exists simply because humans are his creations.
That is the baseline of the whole relationship.
Yeah, and we see this modeled historically and theologically through the actions of Christ. We are presented with a figure who didn't just drop material aid from the sky while maintaining a safe, sterile distance from human misery.
Right. He didn't just wire funds to the earth from some remote location. The text details a very visceral kind of interaction. I mean, he actively touched lepers, which in that society was completely unthinkable.
Oh, it was a huge taboo.
Yeah. He deliberately spoke with people who were entirely despised and cast out by the culture. He fed the hungry, healed the sick, and actually brought outcasts back into the physical fold of the community.
And the text frames the incarnation itself, the concept of God becoming human, as the ultimate act of what it calls condescension.
And I actually want to clarify that word for you listening, because condescension today usually means being patronizing, like talking down to someone.
Right, like a negative trait.
Yeah, but in this theological context, it means willingly stepping down into the mess. It is descending to share the condition of someone lower.
Beautifully put. It is God actively entering into human suffering, taking on a fragile physical body and experiencing pain, hunger, and eventually death.
Which sets up everything else we're talking about today.
Yes. For you listening, this establishes a crucial baseline. True charity, true philanthropy cannot be executed by just throwing money at a problem from afar. It intrinsically requires proximity.
It demands shared vulnerability.
Exactly. The distance between the giver and the receiver has to be completely collapsed.
Which totally flips the script on how we are supposed to act today. I mean, if the divine model requires this ultimate up-close proximity to suffering, the expectation for mere humans to mimic that is, well, it's incredibly daunting.
It is a massive undertaking.
But I do have to push back a little on how someone might interpret this text. The author brings up the biblical command to be merciful, just as your Father is merciful.
Right.
Someone could easily read that as just a generic, ancient call for social politeness, like a basic golden rule, just try to be a nice, cooperative person in your local community.
Right, but the author explicitly warns against reading it that way. This is not a general exhortation for social courtesy or keeping the peace in your neighborhood.
It's way heavier than that.
It is an invitation to literally acquire the ethos of God. It is an invitation to become like the creator in your daily operations.
Wow.
In this framework, giving to someone in need is not a mechanism for feeling socially superior. You don't do it to get that warm, fuzzy feeling of being the benevolent savior in a transaction.
So why do you do it?
You give because you actively recognize the image of the creator etched into the very person you are helping.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the text brings in the gospel of the final judgment to hammer this specific point home.
Yeah.
The concept goes far beyond merely seeing God's image reflected in someone.
Yeah, it gets literal.
Very. Christ literally identifies as the people in need. The text emphasizes that he identifies as the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the sick, and the imprisoned.
And the author brings in a super powerful commentary from the 4th century theologian John Chrysostom to explore the psychological weight of this.
Oh, I love this part.
Chrysostom points out the specific phrasing used in the gospel. Christ doesn't say, "Have mercy on the poor, for they represent me." The phrasing is direct. He says, "Have mercy on me."
Have mercy on me.
Yeah. The act of love, the physical handing over of bread or winter coat, reaches the divine directly.
That phrase alone, have mercy on me, it completely changes the gravity of just walking past someone on the street. It is no longer about managing a societal nuisance or ignoring an uncomfortable reality.
Not at all. The implications shatter any sense of religious self-sufficiency because we all carry around this comfortable self-justification, right?
Oh, definitely. The belief that we are generally good people who just mind our own business.
Exactly. But this theological framework destroys that. It changes the entire dynamic of charity from a patronizing, top-down, me-helping-you transaction into a deeply humbling, almost terrifying encounter with the divine.
Because you aren't managing a social issue. You are physically interacting with God in the guise of the vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, with that heavy theological framework established, we really need to look at how this was actually executed on the ground. Because it is one thing to discuss high-minded philosophy. It is quite another to live such an intensely demanding lifestyle.
Right, theory versus practice.
Exactly. The text introduces us to some historical heavyweights who put this theology into action, starting with Basil the Great. He had a famously ruthless stance on hoarding wealth and goods.
Very uncompromising.
So I want to frame his mindset with a modern analogy for you listening. Imagine you have a massive walk-in closet in your house. It is packed full of heavy, expensive winter coats.
Sounds nice.
Right? A dozen of them still have the price tags on the sleeves. You haven't worn them in years. Meanwhile, you look out your window and there is someone literally freezing on the sidewalk.
Ouch. Yeah.
According to Basil the Great, that extra coat in your closet does not belong to you. Factually, ethically, and theologically, it belongs to the naked person outside. Your surplus bread belongs to the hungry person.
Basil is calling for a radical reframing of property rights here. Ownership is defined by need, not by possession.
Which is completely contrary to how we operate today.
Totally. And Basil didn't just preach this concept from a pulpit and then retreat to a comfortable, wealthy life. The text highlights that he created an institution that came to be known as the Basiliad.
Yeah, this wasn't just a small clinic.
No, it was a massive, organized care complex designed specifically for the sick, the poor, strangers, and those afflicted with leprosy.
The text describes it as a place where theology literally became a hospital, a hostel, and a warm meal. It functioned almost like a parallel city where the currency was care instead of coin.
It upended the Roman and Byzantine societal norms of the time. Back then, power was demonstrated through dominance. But here, power was demonstrated through service.
We see similar figures highlighted in the text, too, like Gregory the theologian.
Yes, he wrote a famous discourse urging people to imitate God's goodness and not despise those whose bodies were crushed by illness.
And John Chrysostom took it even further, calling almsgiving the mother of love. He argued that the act of giving physically knits the community together as members of one body.
And then there's St. John the Merciful. He took the psychological inversion of giving to an extreme. The text notes that he remarkably referred to the needy people he served as his masters and protectors.
Just think about the mental shift required to view someone begging for food in the street as your master. It completely eliminates the ego of the giver.
Entirely.
You are not dispensing favors, you are yielding power to the person in front of you.
And this radical empathy isn't even limited to human beings in the Orthodox tradition.
Oh, right, Isaac the Syrian.
Yes, the text brings in his writings, and he expands this concept to a cosmic level. He argued that a truly merciful heart is one that burns for all of creation. It burns for humans, of course, but also for animals, for reptiles, and for every single created thing.
The empathy becomes completely boundless.
Boundless.
The text uses several other relatable models to demonstrate this mindset in action, too, like the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Right, who stops to physically tend to a wounded man's bleeding injuries, while all the religious leaders cross the street just to avoid the mess.
And the poor widow in the gospel who gives her last 2 coins to the temple. The crucial detail there is that she gives from her lack, not from her surplus.
Yeah, it was her livelihood, not her leftover pocket change.
Exactly. And then we have the early Christian community in Jerusalem, where the text notes they literally sold their properties and shared everything based entirely on the individual needs of each person.
Wow. All of these historical and biblical examples are pointing to the exact same truth. Charity requires a total reorientation of your life toward the vulnerability of others. It is an all-consuming worldview.
Which brings us to the logistics. I mean, if I am supposed to view my extra coat as actually belonging to the person freezing outside, how exactly am I supposed to hand it over?
That's the big question.
We have to look at the ethics of how we give. Is the goal just to throw cash at a problem so it magically goes away?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of the tradition, true giving requires massive discernment. It is never just about dropping a coin in a cup and walking away feeling justified in your own righteousness.
Right.
Almsgiving takes many different forms, and it requires engaging with the reality of the person in front of you. It can be providing food, sure, but it can also be providing a job or medicine or funding an education.
Sometimes it means actively defending someone who is being wronged in a legal or social setting, too.
Exactly. And very often it is simply giving someone your time,
Great.
just sitting with them and offering careful, active listening.
I want to apply this to a very modern scenario based on the clear warnings present in the text.
Let's hear it.
Okay, let's say I am a business owner. I ruthlessly exploit my workers all year. I pay them terrible wages, I cut their health benefits to increase my margins, and I maintain a generally toxic work environment.
Sounds awful.
Right, but at the end of the year, I take a small percentage of my massive profits and donate it to a well-known charity. Can I consider my conscience completely cleared?
The author leans into a very clear, unambiguous no.
No shock there.
Right. You cannot buy salvation with corporate donations. Almsgiving is not a transactional currency you can trade with God, and it is absolutely not an alibi for injustice.
So the exploitation cancels out the donation.
The text explicitly states that if you are exploiting workers or harming others to build your wealth, a donation does not absolve you. Justice, genuine repentance, and the actual restitution of the people you wronged must come first.
Only after you have corrected the injustice does the offering gain any spiritual meaning.
Exactly, because it must be born from love, not from a desire to maintain power or, launder your reputation.
That concept alone is a direct hit to a vast amount of modern corporate philanthropy, and it ties directly into how this tradition views the dignity of the person receiving the help.
Yes, dignity is paramount.
The text emphasizes heavily that the person you are helping is not a case to be managed. They aren't a statistic to be filed away in a quarterly report. They are a human person demanding absolute respect.
And because of that, the author strongly warns against what we would call today PR stunt philanthropy.
We see this constantly on our feeds.
All the time. It is the kind of help that is deliberately photographed, filmed, and publicized across social media just to glorify the donor.
Look at me, look what I did.
Exactly. The text argues that when charity is done for show, it immediately loses its evangelical truth. It feeds the ego rather than killing it.
And the author brings in the mandate from Christ that the left hand shouldn't know what the right hand is doing.
Right. True charity is done anonymously, without exhibitionism, and without any dictatorial attitude over the person receiving the help. The moment you make yourself the center of the story, you have fundamentally corrupted the act.
It is the absolute antithesis of posting a selfie while you serve food at a local shelter. The focus has to remain entirely on the dignity of the brother or sister standing in front of you.
Spot on.
So, what does this all mean? We've torn down the idea of charity as a luxury accessory. We've explored the theology of God's physical proximity to suffering.
We've looked at radical historical figures who gave away their surplus because they no longer believed they even owned it.
And we've established the strict ethical guidelines of giving with justice and profound humility.
It all comes down to a fundamental psychological and spiritual shift within the human being. The merciful person, according to this tradition, stops asking who deserves help.
They only ask who needs it.
Exactly. When they look at someone who is suffering, they no longer see a stranger or a burden. They see a brother. The profound takeaway from this text is that the act of charity isn't just a mechanism to heal the societal wounds of poverty.
Its deeper, ultimate purpose is to cure the giver.
It cures the giver of the tyranny of their own egoism. By physically opening their hand to someone else, they break their own illusion of self-sufficiency. They turn the concept of mine into ours.
And in doing so, the text argues they make room inside themselves for Christ to inhabit them. By learning to be merciful, the human heart actually begins to resemble God. The cure isn't just for the person lacking food on the street. The cure is for the person hoarding the food in the pantry.
That is exactly right.
And that brings us right back to where we started. We talked about the danger of treating charity like a luxury accessory, a nice watch you put on to look good for an evening.
When in reality, this text argues that mercy is the vital organ keeping your soul alive.
Without it, the rest of your religious or moral rituals are just putting expensive clothes on a corpse.
That is a stark image, but it's true.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Let's go back to Basil the Great and that closet full of winter coats.
The extra coat.
Yeah, if our surplus actually belongs to those who lack it, then we need to fundamentally rethink our entire concept of ownership. The next time you give something away, whether it's money to a cause, a coat to a shelter, or even just your time to someone in distress, ask yourself a difficult question.
Are you truly performing an act of spontaneous, magnificent generosity?
Or are you simply returning stolen goods to their rightful owner? How would viewing all your possessions, your bank account, and your extra time through that specific lens completely change the way you move through the world today? Keep diving deep.
Thank you very much for your time. See you soon.